Hi, I'm Cinnamon Cooney, the Art Sherpa, and today I'm so excited to share with you this painting, The Color Purple. This is a tribute to the book by Alice Walker, and of course also the movie. This is one of my favorite books. I've been wanting to do this forever and to share this with you, and I finally come up with something that I think that we can paint together really easily and have a lot of fun. So all you've got to do is get your paint and your brushes, and I'm going to show you every single step you need to create this amazing tribute painting at home. Get your paint, get your brushes, come back and meet me with the easel right now. We're going to art together. Let's start having the enjoyable process of creating this painting. I'm going to tell you about the materials, and we're going to talk about our wishes. So I have an 11 by 14 canvas board right here, and on it I put wishes and intentions. I have Aislinn is wishing for healing for her and her brother. Mary wishes for peace around the world. Jennifer's brother needs some great doctors, healing, hope. Rebel Mama is wishing for strength and healing and hope for her cousin who's going through a glut. Jane is looking for her ring and she's wishing to find it. Happy birthday to Jaden from Raven. Tina Marie is wishing for wellness and compassion for mental health. And healing to little brush Noah, who really needs some big healing wishes. If you would like to leave a wish, be sure and go by TheArtSherpa.com and put one in our wishes form, and you might see one on an upcoming painting. I'm going to paint over those, and that's going to put some positivity into the world, and I always like to do that. So 11 by 14 pre-gessoed canvas board, don't need to do another thing to it. And over here, I have acrylic paint. I also have some sea sponges, which we're also now calling Sherpa nuggets because they look a little bit like nuggets. A bundle of Q-tips tied together with a rubber band. And then I have titanium white, phthalo blue, phthalo green, cad yellow medium, cad red medium, but you could just use any bright orange red that you have, quinacridone magenta, dioxazine purple, burnt sienna, and right here I have, actually this is black gesso, and I chose black gesso because I really enjoy its matte finish, but you can use any black paint that you have. All right, let's get started putting this in, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my rubber glove. Now listen, I'm just doing this because it can get a little bit messy with the paint. You know, it's a good time to take off your jewelry if you have jewelry. And I'm going to get my Sherpa nugget, this little craft sea sponge. I'm going to dip it in my water and I'm going to wring that extra water out. Now you don't want very much water in here, so it's important to wring out as much water as you can. And then I'm going to come and I'm going to get some white paint. I'm going to swirl that around on there like that. And I'm going to get some blue paint. Right, a little more white paint, and I've got a nice little mixture there on my sponge. I'm going to come over to my canvas, and I'm going to start doing circles and swoops. So it's like circle, circle, swoop, and I'm going to fill in all my white canvas with this. I'm going to move my sponge around too. I like to get lots of different values on my sponge, and you can kind of see it's circles and swoops. My darkest color of blue will be up top on my canvas up here, because when the sky is up, the upper part is the darkest, and then as it gets closer to the horizon, it'll get lighter. So that's how with the sponge we can do that. And you can see I'm just doing little circles and swoops. Now I'm going to come get a lot more white onto my sponge because I'm getting closer to the horizon. And I'm only going to really come down until my halfway point, because this horizon line for this wonderful painting is very high. You can do this with your brush if you want to. I just really love the effect of the sponge here. You can see that the circle, circle, swoop gives me some very beautiful sky, and then I can go back and forth at the horizon line a little bit to flatten that out. Now that I have some clouds and some interesting sky happening here, I'm going to take my sponge, and I might even turn it over and get some white, and I'm going to dab it off over to the side, and then I'm going to do an interesting thing. I'm going to come to the top of some of my little implied clouds and just dab a little bit of this highlight out here. just a little bit out into the sky. And I'm going to come over to the left-hand side and dab just a little bit of highlight out here. You can see how that is on my sponge. You can move your sponge around to prevent patterns. You know, that's the repetition of the same shape and shape again, because sometimes nature doesn't really do that. And I'm going to come here into the sponge. Nature likes to surprise us, right, with the different ways it can make clouds, so you should be surprising too in your painting. And I've taken this white and I'm just very softly dusting back and forth some low wispy clouds that might be here at the baseline. Now once I have that in and I like my sky, and remember you can put a dusty up here, you can put a dusty anywhere you want. Dusty little fellows being surprising in the sky. Once I have that there, I'm going to put in the field of Cosmo. I'm not even going to rinse a sponge. I'm going to come over to my phthalo green and I'm going to pull that into my sponge. I don't come right in the middle of the paint. I come to the side and I go swirly, swirly, swirl. See? Swirly, swirly, swirl. And when I have that, I'm going to come to just almost my halfway point, a little bit above, and I'm going to make a soft horizon line right here and pull that back and forth, letting the sky and the field blend into each other a little bit. All right? And then I'm going to just fill in half of this space with that. Now I'm going to find a new little section on my sponge, like right down here. I'm going to take a little bit of my brown, swirly, swirly, swirl, and a little bit of my green, again, swirly, swirly, swirl. And I'm going to finish the lower half of my painting with this much darker green and brown rubbing. Just rub that on in. It's really fun to do this. Now, I didn't put gloves on both hands, so I'm going to get a little paint on my other hand that's holding the canvas. You could flip your canvas over if that gives you a better angle. The important thing is that you just get your light minty value and your darker green value in the front. And this is going to start creating a background, middle ground, and foreground we need for this fun painting. Now, Sherpa nuggets are awesome, but you don't want to leave paint on them. So this is a really good time to wash out your little sea sponge, or to at least put it aside in water to rest so that the paint doesn't dry on it. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to grab another Sherpa nugget. I'm going to get this little Sherpa nugget and I'm going to put it in the water, let it get softened. And I'm going to squeeze out that extra water. And I'm going to come get a little of my quinacridone. That's this pink kind of color here, and a little white. It's okay if a little blue dusts into it, makes it look a little more distant. And I'm going to come along this back line here and just dab. See, I'm just dabbing. This is our background. These are distant little feelings of pink that we have, of far away pink flowers in this tremendous field of purple. Cosmo is amazing like that when it's in a full field. And I'm going to just dab this at least a little bit past my dark spot there, my dark green. Like you do. Keep swirling that around. This is a really fun painting process, but if you're really new to painting and you're feeling any anxiety, remember that acrylic paintings have stages, and you've got to love them in the beginning because they can look a little crazy until about the last bit. So your only job as a new painter is just to hold on and finish your project and know that it's going to come together as long as you get all those layers in and you believe in yourself. You just got to hold on there. All right, keep dabbing up and down with your little sponge. Now, I'm not pressing in hard, leaving marks like that. I'm doing light marks. But if you did do a hard mark like that, you could just come back lightly and tap it out with your sponge. And it's not going to ruin your painting. You know, nothing terrible is going to happen here. So you can pretty much, so if you get a pattern like that, you just come with the side of your sponge, right? And dab it away. Look at that. It just goes away. You can absolutely fix anything in your painting. This is just art. I just want to say that because I know that this is an important painting and you might have some strong feelings about it. I don't want you getting worried needlessly. I've got this nice little bit of paint right here on my sponge and I might come take advantage of that. Look at that. You can create that if you don't just have it naturally on your sponge by coming and grabbing the tip of your sponge with some pink and a little white. But, you know, look at that. Making little more focal spots if you want. It's a nice thing that you can do. Little areas of interest. Now, once those are in, I'm definitely going to put that aside. And I'm going to grab cotton buds, cotton swabs, earbuds, Q-tips, just, you know, these little things you clean your ears with. You probably have some around the house. I like the ones with the rounded tips. They have some with precision little pointed tips, but I don't get as good of a result from them. These tend to have little hairs that come off, and if that happens, I just sort of flub them back in to the little bunch. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to get a little white on my collection here. And you can see what I mean, like little hairs that just want to be free. Maybe I'll get a little purple. Could add some purple to my color purple painting. Got two kinds of purple here. And I'm going to just dab this bunch around a bit. And this is creating maybe some more focal bits like you might have. You can even add some quinacridone to your little bunch. Some more white, making it all sort of color interesting. See, there's one of the little hairy bits. And you're just dabbing that around. And I am focusing kind of central here, but you can bring some up and down. These are just these little impressionistic bits. They're kind of like pointillism. We're using some actually pretty complicated art thought here, but in a fun way. Right? I think the best kept secret about fine art is that it's actually quite fun. And sometimes you can take the lessons from really amazing painters, like the pointillists, and turn them into a fun and simple project like this that you can really enjoy doing. You can see why I enjoy doing this on a canvas board, because I'm really working it. And that lets me just have at this surface. I'm going to grab some more quinacridone, spin that around here, maybe some more white. This is just a nice layer of colorful flowers. Pulling this all through here. All right, I really enjoy that. I think that's wonderful. I'm going to relieve my hand of this glove because my hand is hot now. I'm going to dry the painting with my hair dryer, or you can just let the painting rest and go grab yourself a cup of coffee, whatever you prefer. But you want it to be dry for the next part. I'm going to show you how you can transfer our traceable, which is on TheArtSherpa.com for free, onto the canvas. Because remember, tracing is not cheating. You don't have to draw to be able to do art. I think art is a set of skills and you can learn drawing. It's a skill you can totally pick up, but if you don't have it today, there's no reason not to do this painting. So go grab the traceable and I'll show you how to make that cool thing work. Okay, let me show you how to use the traceable so you can transfer the image on. Listen, if you're good at drawing and you're ready to freehand it, I absolutely think that's perfectly fine to do. It's just if you're not drawing yet, this is an acceptable method. So I have here, this is the original traceable that I created. When I'm doing art, I create several test drawings until I'm happy with it. And I do that on tracing paper. And when I'm satisfied, I then take those images and put them on canvas. This is a regular art skill that people use. So I always find it really crazy and funny when people are like, oh, tracing is cheating. I'm like, well, you kind of have to do it in art. So how can it be cheating? I'm going to put these girls here on my canvas and I'm going to line them up in the center. You could put them to either side. That's actually an artistic decision that you could make if you would like them offside, but I'm going to put them in the center and I'm going to line them up just a little above my horizon line on the chin here. So I tape this down. This is low tack tape. So it's not going to, sometimes if the tape is really tacky, it'll pull your paint up underneath, and I don't want that to happen. On the back of the paper, I've rubbed kids chalk all over the places where I have lines. Right? So it's going to leave me nice white line chalk, and I'm going to, with my hard pencil, I'm going to trace over all my black lines again, and it's going to transfer this image onto the canvas. Once you have your image transferred on the canvas, whether you freehand it in or trace it, just pick whatever's right for you. Then you get to put in the silhouette. I'm going to choose a brush for acrylic painting that's going to be small enough to make it comfortable for me to do the tight corners that I have here, and also firm enough to handle the paint. So I have here a number 2 filbert. You could also use a number 2 bright or a small detail round. This is a very small, tiny brush, and this brush is made for acrylic paint, so it has what we call authority. It will really move the paint around for you. And I'm going to alternate between this and a much smaller Monza brush, I think, which is this one right here, a number 2 filbert as well, but you could also use a bright. I'm just using filberts today. Brights are also perfectly good. And I'm going to come in and start very carefully putting in my silhouettes with my black gesso. You could be using black paint. What I'm going to say about silhouettes is they're actually a really fun and powerful method of expression in painting, because there's something about that you see yourself in a silhouette. By removing some of the detail, it allows more of the viewer in the painting. The other reason I like to pick silhouettes is that it's really accessible if you're very new to painting. It is easier to add paint on the silhouette than remove it, though of course you can fix mistakes in acrylic painting. You just got to let the paint dry. So my advice is to be cautious and then very slowly add a little bit as you're confident in what you're doing. Remember, you can use a bright, a filbert, or a round for this. So I'm just painting her in like this. I'm going to show you some really cool tricks for doing hands. So if ever hands have been a struggle for you, I'm going to show you some cool things that you can do today to make them interesting. I'm going to just take this pure black down to her neck, but to be sure that I'm seeing her floppy hat. This is Celie right here, in case you're not recognizing her. This is Celie. And so Celie has a not as bright hat as her sister. So what I'm taking is a little bit of my black over to my phthalo. I'm pulling a little phthalo out, and then I'm coming over to my white, grabbing a little white, and I'm making this bluish gray. This is still part of the silhouette, but this is going to help me define the different areas of my painting. I just dipped in a little bit of water to improve flow. Acrylic paint is designed to be thinned with either mediums or water. All right, so see I'm painting that in. And it's still part of the silhouette. Even though we've got more colors than just straight black here, this is still part of the silhouette. I'm taking the top of her hat. We're going to be putting a brown ribbon on there. I'm really excited to be sharing this tribute painting with you today. I hope you're enjoying painting it. You're taking a little time for yourself. Her shirt, I'm going to add, I'm not even going to rinse any of this off. I'm actually going to grab a little of my brown and add it to my black. So this is a little bit different. Again, I'm going to paint the shirt silhouette in with this very dark brown. Celie's clothes not being as fancy as maybe Nettie's. Just pulling this down. And at the end here, I'm going to let it be very loose and expressive. We're going to have grasses that come up over the girls that they're standing in and flowers. So you don't have to be that concerned about this edge line here. Coming underneath, just a little black and brown. Celie's dress is more like a shirt or a sack. So even though we can't see the distinct features of our characters' faces, of our focal faces, we still know who they are. I'm grabbing a little more brown, just so that when I put in the sleeve, I can see it from the background. These are little touches. This is like kind of a complex silhouette because we're doing some simplified things, and we're definitely saying that these figures are black backlit and in shadow. But there are elements of them that we're aware of that help us and the viewer identify who they are, if that makes sense. Also, painting this sleeve in a slightly browner color will really help you, the painter, kind of keep your trace lines together so that you're not feeling like you're having to discover how to draw her on the fly. Here's the little cuff, the rolled cuff. A little tuck of rolled cuff right here. Peeking out. All right, I'm going to rinse that out, wipe that off, and lay that to the side. And I'm going to grab my small detail brush. Listen, any small brush, teeny tiny brush, you could do a brush like this. You just want a brush that gives you control. This is a number 2 round. I'm going to load up this little filbert here, and I'm going to make sure that I have a nice line on the profile that I like, that feels like Celie. Celie is slightly older than Nettie, and so I tried to reflect that in her facial features. I'm just making sure I have a nice, beautiful, flat silhouette that feels finished. And I'm going to go into the arms now. So when I'm coming out along the arm line, one of the things you'll notice in the traceable is that the forearm tapers into the wrist. So that's very important that you capture that in the painting. And then I like to call this the paddle. A hand, it looks a little bit like a spatula paddle that's wider at the end. See that shape right there? So that's the basis of how I paint in a hand. Even if you're painting inside the traceable, painting in the paddle of the hand will help you a lot. I'd say this is probably the most challenging part of the painting for new painters. And taking your time here, taking deep breaths, not dropping your paintbrush. Taking deep breaths, not dropping your paintbrush, will be your most helpful guides here. I'm just defining that a little bit. I'm going to come up from the bend in the wrist almost to the halfway point, and I'm going to pull out a curved line that doesn't really go past the top of my paddle. And that's going to be my thumb. Then I'm going to pull out my first forefinger. If you look at my hand, my forefinger. And this shouldn't be much longer than the paddle of the whole hand. You can always add paint. And even though you can take it away if you take it too far, it's kind of a pain, so it's best not to do it if you don't have to. Then the next finger, right, is going to be longer than the forefinger. Just a smidge, not a lot, like a tip or a fingertip or a hair, just a little bit longer. Then this finger should be about the same length as the forefinger, the ring finger. And then the pinky should be shorter than both the fingers involved. It's okay to curve fingers a little bit. It just shows an expression to the hand, like they're open and active. So these are things that you can do. If ever you feel like you've made a mistake, you can always paint background colors over your mistake, but only after they're dry. So be sure if you're ever trying to repair a boo-boo in acrylic painting that you're waiting until the paint is dry. That's kind of good advice for life if you think about it. It's always good to fix things, but sometimes you have to give stuff a little time to stabilize and resolve. These are weird little lessons from the easel that you get when you're painting all the time. Sometimes you have to let a situation dry, just the same way you let your paint dry. You gotta let it heal and get better before you can do a thing about it. And if you try to fix it before it's ready, it just makes a hot mess, doesn't it? Same thing in your painting. If you try to fix a boo-boo without the paint being dry, it'll just make a hot, muddy mess. All right, I'm going to come up between the wrist and the forefinger and pull out another little thumb. There we go. Forefinger. A curving little ring finger for this patty cake game. This is a rare moment in the story when these girls are happy. And I have to say, the one thing that Alice Walker gave me as a reader was these incredible moments of happiness in what is difficult circumstances at the very least. And she found a way to balance that in a process that came into my life when I really needed those skills. And I think sometimes authors teach us things that help us in real life. All right. So I've got these two hands here. Very active, very happy. You can see from the positioning of the fingers how happy our character is here. Let's put Nettie in. Now Nettie's hat actually will be black. And I'm going to just hold on to this brush for a second because I've got it in my hand. So I might as well. And I'm going to put my red highlight over it. It's really going to pop. I'm using a cadmium red because cadmium is an extraordinary color and it glows in a painting. That's why artists in general bother to use it. Hue is perfectly acceptable. You'll see cadmium comes in hue and pure cadmium pigments. There's certainly a huge cost difference between them, and I would say go ahead and enjoy hue. And whenever you're painting with kids, it's always best to use hue, because the more professional paint pigments get, the more interesting ingredients they have in them that you probably do not want your children eating, or you yourself. Don't eat paint. That's my whole advice. All right, so I'm going to come and enjoy her profile. Very So again, she's a little younger. And so therefore, watching my daughters even, I've noticed my youngest she's so much bigger in her expressions than her older sister. So I made sure Nettie's expression was bigger. And I also shortened her facial features. And that's how, even though we're in silhouette, you can tell there's a difference in age between these two girls. That's sort of a fun thing that you can do in art, is use these little visual cues to tell a lot to the person looking at your painting. All right, got our head in here. I'm going to put a couple little braids. Off the back here. All right. There we go. Now let's paint in her dress. Her dress is going to be a bright white, so it's going to be important to, I haven't even rinsed my brush off, and I'm pulling out some blue. And you know how they add blue to detergent sometimes to make things feel whiter? Well, that's a thing that will often work in paintings as well. So I'm going to paint the undertones of her white dress in blue. So when I come put the highlights of the white in, it will really pop. You can help yourself, like, know that the sleeve is a different area if you add like some more white to your paint. Just a little bit, just so it's one shade different than the background. And this can help you not lose your drawing when you're painting it in. You just need it to be different values a little bit. Because again, this is a silhouette. So we're going to be using highlights and little visual cues to tell a lot. Putting the collar in, just added some more white. So the collar will be just a slightly different value. And then I'm going to come down the sleeve. I still haven't rinsed my brush. All right, white little sleeve. She has a fancy puff sleeve. Again, that's important in the story. Her dress is important in the story. I didn't really need to rinse there. Have it. So I'm going to reload with a little black and blue. Grab some white. Come down here and pull her fuller skirt down into the grass. Pull it down into the grass. This is going to be peeking out. It's going to make a real visual impact for us. We're going to really feel these girls in their moment. So feel like you can be super expressive. All right, now I am going to rinse out my brush because I'm going to put in her arms. And you'll see me wipe off my brush on the towel. That's because I really want to maintain control of the amount of water into my paint. I'm just putting her little forearm here. I'm going to taper it to the wrist, and then I'm going to do my paddle. You know I love my paddles. They help me a lot. Please don't let, if something gives you trouble in your art, it's hard for you to do, at all confuse you that you can't do art. Some parts of a painting will always be easier than others, come easier than others. And that experience has nothing to do with your natural creativity or if you should be painting or not. The only thing that should decide if you should be painting or not is if you enjoy painting. I'm going to pull my thumb, curving backwards, again halfway up the paddle. My forefinger, middle finger, ring finger, pinky finger. Oh, my paddle got a little bit away from me, so I'm going to show you how I fix that hand in just a minute. See, there's always an opportunity in painting, even when I'm like, up, I get a little overexcited or work a little fast. And I get to fix something. But I'm going to do what I got to do, which is let my paint dry. Now this is convenient because this is in a lot of purple, so it's going to be super easy for me to fix. Pull my little thumb. My trick here is just making sure that I have the width of the fingers worked out. Now, where I have it a little bit not how I want it right there, I'm just going to get a little white and purple together again. Kind of what I have in the background. And I can just come between these two. And this is the beauty of acrylic paint. There's something in a painting I'm not loving. I'm never just stuck with it. I think sometimes in art and in life, we feel stuck with circumstances or boo-boos or issues, and we don't realize that the combination of time and just revisiting it can make all the difference. And I think that's one of the wisdoms that the art studio can provide, because you can always get back to where you want to be, just making little adjustments. You can even take out an idea entirely and rethink it. So I don't have to have any fear in my creativity or my imagination. I just have to be determined and persevere. All right, painting this in, so I'm very happy with it. Now I'm going to come and finish her delightful red hat, which I love. So I'm just going to take I'm going to make sure my brush is really, really washed. I'm going to pull some just red paint. And I'm going to leave a hat band, so I'll very carefully paint out this area that I'm going to leave black. Of course, I could just put it back black. That is not a problem. I'm going to just dry brush her hat red. Dry brushing means I don't have a lot of water on my brush, and I'm letting what's under the paint show through, so a lot of the black shows through. I don't have to paint it out and make it perfectly red. I want a little bit of that black, I'm grabbing a little black here, to show through. That's actually a goal. than I'm having. Just add a little back shadow to the hat, see? Makes it pop a bit, doesn't it? Gives it a little personality. A lot you can say with just 2 colors of paint and a few brush strokes about a couple of characters, right? Now I'm going to add one last little highlight. I'm going to take a little of my red. So I didn't put out very much. You're just using any bright red that you have. And I'm going to add a smidge of yellow to it, because then I can come to the front of the hat and put just a kiss of sunlight on the hat. Just a kiss. Doesn't take a lot. Put some more red back in there. Just making sure that her hat story, it's an important part of her story, is there. Then I'm going to put in the next bit of important red, and it's going to peek through the grass, but it's going to matter, which is that she is got a little red tie around her waist. That will matter in a second. Now this is a great time, if I may say so, to get a fresh jar of water. So grit some fresh water, because one of the things that's going to make your paintings look muddy and not be satisfying is not having clean water. If your water gets too dirty, it's going to muddy up all your colors, and then you're going to be like, why can't I get vibrant colors? Sometimes it's just your water. Let's meet right back after fresh water. So now you have some fresh water. Let's finish out Nettie's fabulous dress. I'm going to grab a bright this time. I'm going to get a number 4 bright. This is a Bristlon. This is a really firm filament. And I'm going to put out just a smidge more white paint, because I need some very bright white paint that doesn't have a lot of other color in it. I can use this for my Cosmos coming up, but for her dress, I'm going to want something just a little bit brighter. So I'm going to load up this brush with just white. I haven't added any water to my brush. And I'm going to come on the corner of the brush. That's how I get around complicated turns and stuff on these brights and squares. And just pull in this dry brushed highlight of the dress. It allows a lot of the blue to show through. It makes the white feel more white. And I may even come back with just some blue and white for a bright shadow. This is a nice way to talk about her white dress in this field of flowers. I'll come along the top of her collar, just over the top, making that white. Along the back here, using the edge of my brush. I'm going to let some of this dark shadow be under the sleeve so that these areas feel different from each other, right? How we're doing. And then, and this is the fun part, I'm going to grab some white, come over the top here, and really pop this white up along where the skirt's in the grass. She's almost like her own flower, isn't she? And then I'm going to take a little bit of the blue paint, mix it into the white paint. I'm going to get this bright color. I'm going to pop. This is like the wrinkles of the fabric, these shadows. And they almost reflect the blue of the sky, don't they? Maybe under her arm a little bit here. And then a little bit in her dress as well. Rinse out my brush a little bit. And I'm going to come work Celie's shirt. I'm going to take a little bit of my brown out and a little bit of my white. And I'm going to just make this not as vibrant. It's a little milked out, isn't it? And I'm going to come along the shirt. And I'm going to dry brush this creamy brown into the sleeve. I'm letting some of the dark brown still show through the sleeves a little bit along the collar. See, I make this little triangle right here and pull down a little triangle, curve it, and pull it back, leaving this dark spot here. That's how I get to imply that collar. It's a clever little bit of craft right there. And you can do that too. I'm going to come along the back, and this is directionality. I'm going to brush stroke in the direction of Celie's shirt. I'm going to leave this dark value under the sleeve. And then when I have that all done, I'm going to get some more white on my brush. I'm going to come along the top here. Just cast a little sunline on the back. A little bit right there. On the collar. Top of the sleeve. Just a couple little wrinkles down. And then maybe rinse out your brush a bit, because you're almost done with the girls. And are you feeling them? I hope you're feeling them. I'm going to take a little of my blue and black and add a bit of white to it. It's kind of like a highlight. And she's up in the sky, so I've got to be a little bit careful how I do this. I'm going to come back from the edge of the dark blue a bit and highlight the hat. So I'm leaving the edge of this dark blue to keep the hat separate from the sky. I'm kind of aging that in. And if you need to, you can always come back with the dark blue and black and make sure that you have that line super well defined. See? You're just trying to make sure that your hat isn't the same value as your sky. Otherwise, it'll just disappear. I'm going to get some brown. Tip it with a little bit of black. And I'm going to add the brown ribbon to Celie's hat. Adding a little water to my brush. Putting a little more brown into the band. And then just blow a couple little ribbons back. So she's got that. It's a little bit there. You can always like grab a little yellow into that and a little white. And even pop a little highlight on the ribbons. But it's like a dingy one. So it's like it's catching some sunlight. But she just doesn't get to have the color. Now we're going to put the vibrant front Cosmo. And this is the up close flowers the girls are in. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to keep into my number 4 bright. You could do number 6 bright, number 2. It's really whatever's comfortable with you to get the stroke. And I'm going to make some brighter colors. I'm going to take my yellow over to my green. And the first green I'm going to make is just slightly brighter than the green itself and the green in the background. And I'm going to start growing some Cosmo up here. And so how I'm going to do this, I'm going to go curving my stroke. I'm going to press it in. I've just added some water to improve flow because my paint's been under hot lights for a while. So I'm press and curve, press and curve. I'm on the edge of the brush. Sometimes I'm going to curve up and curve back. I change the direction. And the reason that I do that, and when I come around the dress, I don't want the whole dress to disappear. So I'm going to leave some of this showing, even if I take some of it up very high, because I want people to know that she's in this really pretty little kit. I want them to see that part of the story. And as I'm coming near Celie, you know, think about changing the brush direction, thinking about blowing the grass. What this really is about is the wind going through the grass and how you can tell that story. What you see me doing here is my paint is drying and it's getting gummy, and I'm trying to pull out my wet paint and then offload to keep my brush from overloading. And then I'm going to grab it all onto a bead and just keep going. And there we are, curving back. See the curve? And then maybe curve another direction, because the grass, it has wind in it. The Cosmo, they have wind in it. This field, it's alive. It's a living, real thing, and living, real things are in motion. Everything about this painting, the ribbons blowing in the wind, the way the grass is blowing, the way the sky is moving, tells us that this is a living space, that these girls are living and connected deeply, that this is sisterhood, that everything that's happening here is in motion. And this is how we can honor those things in some of our favorite stories, by paying attention to maybe the tone of, you know, the book, and trying to capture some of those moments. You know, tone of the, even the movies, whatever you're fangirling on. As if you've known me a while, you know I'm often fangirling on something or other. It's think about the feeling of it. Each world has its own energy. And this particular space stuck with me because everything in this moment was so alive. So I think it's important to show that if you can. It's a privilege. You get to do it. It's your world, though. It's your painting. So you do it how you want to do it. I'm just explaining how I was doing that. So you can see me just brushing up. I press the brush and I'm making quick movements, and I'm letting a lot of the canvas show through. This is called painterly. It's expressive, energetic brush strokes. Super fun to do if you get to do it. Super fun. Hopefully you're still having a super good time doing this painting, and I hope you're doing it with your sisters or people in your life that you are connected to like sisters. You're just loving this moment and having a lot of fun. I just grabbed some more yellow, the cad yellow, and I'm brushing that value in here over in this right hand corner, adding some depth. If you'll notice, some of my grass is darker green, some of it is lighter green. Again, this is alive. So I'm going to take a little more of my yellow out into my green and make a very, very, very bright green. This green is so bright. And then I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to add a little white to it. You can kind of see that bead there. That's that little roll of paint. And I'm going to come and add this one last final layer that's going to really create some depth at the top of these blades, the new blades with the tender growth. Let's put these girls in the high flowers. Where wouldn't you want to play here? Wouldn't you want to take a moment and be in this moment? Again, I love that. The contrast of these beautiful moments against the challenging moments, the dark moments, and still being present to the beauty, never letting those things in life take that beauty away. Whoa! My traceable just fell down. Dun, 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 dun. Ow. Hit my hairdryer. Art is dangerous. Be careful. All right. When you feel that you've just found the energy of your grass and that it's just blowing and it's just alive, you're good. You can put that brush down. I'm going to get the number 2 filbert, this little short handle. This is a short handle, and I'll say to you right now, if you are confined to sitting when you're painting, sometimes short handles are much more comfortable. That's a thing you might not know that I'm just sharing with you that you now know. Before you put in your pinks and purples, it's a good idea to make sure your canvas is dry, because the yellow and green will dull the color of the flowers, and we don't want these flowers to be dull at all. We want them to be pop, pop, popping and alive. So let's dry this and then we can get to the next part. So we all have to agree that the best part of the cake is the frosting, and putting in these flowers is pretty much like putting frosting on a cake. So really breathe it in and take a minute to enjoy the fun part of this whole project. If you're still here and you're still painting, I want to congratulate you. Now you know what I'm talking about. Being an art is about just sticking in and getting those layers on and getting to the end of the painting. And this is where the big reward comes in. Little filbert. Gonna get it a little bit wet. I'm gonna start putting in my little flowers. So I'm gonna start out with my quinacridone. I may have to put out a little more quinacridone. I like to say the word quinacridone. Can you tell? Basically, this is a magenta. It's just a very vibrant, high saturation magenta, so it's a lot of fun to work with. And I'm going to take a little of this and some white. Right? Like this. And I'm going to come here and I'll show you a flower. We're going to make a nice big one right here. We're going to plant one little petal and then bring in another little petal. I press in and pull in. Press in and pull in. I'm going to press in and pull in. You can even add this one right here. This is a lot of fun to do. Press in and pull in. Press in and pull in. So I'm going to be mixing up the quinacridones and the dog's eating flowers because, again, nature is in motion. It's about variety. I'm going to add one here. Feel free to put flowers over the two flowers that are central in the field, right? Because that's what these two girls really are. So there are the flowers. Or they should feel like it to you in your heart. Put a little flower up in her sleeve. Just pulling out these little petals. Enjoy it. Plant them, grow them. This is your garden. This field can be the field that you always wish you found. Just enjoying putting those out. As many as you like. You can be as generous with this color as you feel. It's also fun sometimes to change up the shape. So another shape I like to put out is sort of like this little half shape where I kind of do a pull and then I come out to the side here. But I don't pull to the outside, and it applies at the flowers more like that, which is really kind of fun. It's also nice to bring some flowers up high over here. Now, if it's not really showing up against its background, one thing that you can do is get some white. See, and alter that contrast so that it does. Because nature does what? Nature lives. There's a 3-petal one. You can do some small pops of color. So some can be smaller, some can be, you know, bigger. I move around a lot. All right, be right here. Just trying to tell this incredible, colorful story. Isn't it just so much? It makes me so happy. Now I'm going to start pulling in some of my dog's-eating, and I'm going to mix it with the quinacridone a little bit. And let those colors, I'm going to start coming here, pull together. So we have a mix of the different purples that we might want. Just a little bit. Like you might in an amazing field like this. Just putting those around. Just these little happy strokes. Sure feel it getting more colorful. Keep moving this way for a second. Just enjoying it. Just having fun. The way the paint is together. Just put in these little flowers. I'm going to come back over here and see if there's any I want to fill in over here. Over on the left hand side. This whole part is just looking about where do I want to plant this garden. How beautiful is the field these girls are in. And when I have enough flowers, when I feel I've told enough of the story, I'm going to dry these real quick so I can do bright pops of yellow in the center. Let's put those cheerful yellow dots in the center of these flowers. I'm going to come over to my yellow. I'm going to get a little bit on my brush. There we go. Just something I can leave, little dots. I'm going to add little yellow centers to the flowers. It's not all of them, just some of them. Just the ones I think it would show. Just moving over towards my left. Just where I think I would have a little bit of that. Skipping some, because again, variety. And that also says that some of the faces of the flowers aren't coming perfectly at me. Some are away by not showing the yellow centers on everything. And once that's done, guess what? It's time for me to sign the painting. I really have wanted to do Alice Walker's Color Purple, some tribute painting to this for a long time. I'm really excited to get to do this, and I hope you enjoyed spending this time with me because I know I love spending it with you. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and I want to see you at the easel really soon.